ordinance. It's called a flagpole or a flag lot ordinance. I guess it already pertains to businesses. But basically, it's a strip of land of minimum of 24 feet in width connecting the widest area of a flag lot to the public right-of-way, may be used as the means of access. He's going to kind of come in and talk to us about it, I think, during the public meeting. He gave me these. I've wanted to do this the last 2 times, but I keep forgetting. So this is for you, and he's going to come up and discuss that. Giving you this just as a heads up to kind of give you a little bit of a opportunity to know what he's talking about. So, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
I wish there was somebody here
Hi,
from,
Mike.
Hello.
I
Welcome.
wish there was somebody here from P and Z, because I think, don't we already
It's on P&Z.
not allow, I meant from staff that knows all of the regulations, that I'm not sure we allow flag lots anymore.
So he wants to add an ordinance to allow it in residential, is what he wants.
Commercial is good, it's residential that he's proposing. That's the idea, anyway.
Oh, I know.
Didn't you have a motion before we got started?
Oh, yes. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion. I propose that Councilman McIntosh bring cookies to all of the work sessions from now till the end of the year.
From now until I'm done in 2 years.
Sure, if he does that.
Even after you're not on anywhere
I still have-
anymore, just keep doing it.
Just keep reading.
Every other week, we'll be getting micro cookies.
I love it.
In our premium, I would like to also welcome our newly electeds that will be joining us in the new year. And so, do we want them to introduce themselves?
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Whatever you think.
go ahead, Jenna. Just, yeah, we're pretty laid back here.
Jenna Jensen.
Welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
It is that time of year where we need to prepare ourselves for the straw poll that takes place among this group in terms of who our new leadership contingent is going to be moving into the new calendar year. And certainly, obviously, we're going to have a new council as well. The straw poll, as you remember, is not official, because we don't make that official until the first meeting in the new year, wherein the council ostensibly ratifies what it is that y'all have determined or will determine as a part of the straw poll process. And so
That's at our next work session?
I think so, but let me defer to her, yeah.
Your Honor, members of council, yes, it is the next Tuesday. So tonight, we were just gonna talk about, as city manager mentioned, the process, and then I will hand out the nomination forms. So you can fill out this form and give it back to me, you can drop it off at the office, you can leave it at City Hall Mail, or you can email me if that's easier, whichever works. I think we lost Councilmember-elect Vaughn, but I will get him this information. I'm not sure dropped off. But right now I'm here to answer any questions you may have. The process is just basically fill out the nomination form, and if you can get those back to me by next Monday, I will ask anyone who's been nominated if they're okay, if they accept the nomination. If they do, their name will go on the ballot. If they don't, then they won't be on the ballot, and I'll let whoever nominated them know. And you can also self-nominate. Any questions?
Questions for Fleur? Pretty straightforward process. All right.
Mr. Mayor, just to be clear, if I may, Fleur, can you help us understand the distinction between the vice mayor role and how that person is appointed? Is it just a plurality of votes that particular person gets when you go through your second wave of voting, quote unquote?
So basically what we do is during the straw poll, you'll be handed a ballot for mayor. And sometimes people are nominated for mayor and vice mayor. The same person might be nominated for both roles. So we'll do the mayor first. And then if somebody was nominated and it wins the election for mayor, then they would come off of the vice mayor. And then the remaining people would go up for the vice mayor, if that's what you mean. And then we will count those votes. And how we count them is we just count till we get a majority. And if we don't have a majority, we would cross off the person who has the least and then go back forward until we have a proper majority. So, and all of that you'll see next week when we do the straw poll. Looks like we might have that. There we go.
Amber.
Just to remind us, it's council that has been retained and council-elect that
Yes.
votes.
Yep, correct, yes. And so, yes, so council that's gonna be on next year, which includes council members elect, will do the straw poll and do the nominations. And then they will also then do the vote in January after they're seated.
Great,
Yep.
thank you.
Steve.
I was just gonna ask who gets to vote. So, taken care of, because I knew there was a discussion about that a couple of years ago, so.
Any other questions for Fleur, Carter, anybody? Okay. Thank you, Fleur. Appreciate it. Okay, up next, the sole source with Core and Main LP. I bet that's gonna be Andrew.
It is, and without further ado.
Mayor, council-elect, I'm Andrew Beamer, I'm the Public Services Director. We have not typically brought this type of a procurement agreement to you guys for approval, because we simply purchase these things on an as-needed basis, and the dollar amount is such that it doesn't go to council. But because of supply chain issues, we are now getting all the meters and registers that we need a year in advance. So that's why you see this in front of you now. But these are Neptune residential water meters, of which we have 22,000 plus in this community. And every water that you drink or use it goes through a meter. So the Itron meter reading system that we go through, that the staff drives up and down the streets, is all encoded to these Neptune meters. So with this purchase agreement, we're looking at 300 meters plus the registers, just shy of $100,000. And Core and Main is the supplier in this neck of the woods. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Steve.
Why did we go away from the mechanical readout to the ones that are basically a solar-powered readout when we're sticking them in basements? Because the average person can't even go down and read their own meter anymore.
The meter, actually, it has a stub out that you may not even notice it. It's on the side of the house. It depends on where it's at in the basement so that we can actually read it as we drive down.
Oh, yeah.
So
But I mean, though, the old meters actually had a digital readout on the top of them that still ran to the outside reading. And you could go down and see by watching your meter if you had leakage any place or anything like that. Now it's digital with a solar deal and you have to find the right flashlight or whatever to try to shine on it to maybe get it to light up to where you can read it.
that's what we call that progress.
I don't, when I'm trying to find leaks. I call it a pain in. Never mind. We won't go there.
Kyle. Thanks, Ray. Andrew, can,
I really don't know. I can find out for you.
Well,
I imagine that the manufacturer simply changed the register on it.
Okay.
So,
But yeah, I just thought it odd that with something that is solar powered in a basement.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm lost. I don't know what we're referring to.
meters, water meters.
Yeah,
registers.
a memo or,
It's on the agenda for tonight for the procurement of from Cornback for just
Okay.
shy of $100,000.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that up?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
To follow up to Councilman Gamrow's question, we brought this to you because it does exceed the authority that I have to, make these kinds of purchases. And given that it is a sole source request, that's why we're discussing it with council so that they know that, you know, that there's no inappropriate activity with regard to this recommendation and that kind of thing. That's really why we're here.
Vice Mayor.
Where does it fall in budgetarily, Carter? Or did we budget for it, or do you have the
Yes.
funds available?
This would be a budgeted expense. Do you want,
Yeah, it's budgeted at water distribution, so
Okay.
it was budgeted in for this.
So the money's already there, we just need approval to go get it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Andrew or Carter? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank
Maybe I want to ask one more.
All right, agenda review.
Your Honor, the meeting tonight, the two items that potentially would engender some discussion out on the floor would be with respect to the intrusion alarm second reading, as well as the non-discrimination second reading. Councilman Humphrey sent out an email earlier with respect to some of the questions that may be brought up as it pertains to the second reading for the discrimination ordinance. There is a change in there that I want you to be aware of as well. Mr. Beamer had a professional services agreement with Golder and Associates on there that is not on your agenda for tonight. So if you noticed that missing, that was on purpose. We aren't quite ready with that item. And so you'll notice that absence there if you picked up on that. The other thing is, as it relates to the relinquishment of the urban bottle liquor license to Occasions by Corey, we did leave out a word with respect to the LLC that he's applying for that transfer under. And so you'll notice some brief script changes in that regard as well. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that's all I really have for tonight's meeting.
After a long-awaited absence too, I believe Mr. Huff's liquor license is on tonight.
Yep.
So
right.
that'll finally get back into action.
And Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, that wraps up the two licenses that have that unique characteristic of being tied to a particular location.
Right.
And solidifies that that type of a license at the appropriate address.
Amber.
Thank you. Do we have some amendment language for the non-discrimination ordinance that we are expecting tonight?
Fantastic question. Yes, so it is in the script.
Great.
We have the vice mayor that will move.
Great.
So he'll make the motion, so we're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
And it covers, it's more specific on age.
Yeah.
And there's some other wording in there that Mr. Henley came up with, just to make it more clear, if you will. And Mr. McIntosh brought up a couple things I'm sure we'll hear about tonight, but let them come. I mean, got to go through the process, so.
So a couple things that I just, as we kind of go through it too, is, so be real mindful. When people come up to do their conversation, or to present and to talk, we can get caught, I think, a little bit, where we start to go into the discussion phase, where we start to opine a little bit, and then we kind of go back and forth. And so if there's gonna be a lot of people that come up, I'd caution everybody just to be mindful of that. Don't go into an opine session with them, or, kind of going back and forth. Really, that opportunity is, when I usually say, does anybody have any questions for X, Y, and Z, for clarifications? So let's try to keep that in mind as we kind of do those things. I just want to be everybody to keep mindful of that. It kind of keeps things moving too, so. Anything else on the agenda review that we need to review?
Not from my standpoint.
Nobody? Okay. All right, thank you. We've got about 15 minutes, so.
We have an executive tonight.
Oh, executive session tonight, so. And it shouldn't be too too long. I promise, Amber.
Sure.
Did you have anything else, Andrew?
No, Mayor, unless you would like me to. just
Shocker.
get up and
I'm shocked.
15 minutes.
All right. See you on the floor.
Good evening. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone to please silence your cell phones. I'd also like to remind you that city council meetings are televised and they can be viewed on channel 192. I now call the November 15th, 2022 regular council meeting to order. Let's see. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the October 18th, 2022 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star-Tribune on November 3rd, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Nell, seconded by Councilmember Ingebretson. Any amendments? Please cast your vote.
Sorry.
Please record the vote.
Councilmember Pollock abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the October 18, 2022 executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Ingebretson, seconded by Councilmember Cathy. Any amendments? Please cast your vote.
Oops.
Mine should be abstained, but it's not.
Can you note that? Oh, there we go. Please record the vote.
Councilmember Pollock abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the October 25th, 2022 special council meeting as published in the Casper Star-Tribune on November 3rd, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Sutherland, seconded by Councilmember Ingebretson. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, the motion passes.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the October 25th, 2022 executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Nell, seconded by Councilmember Pollock. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, the motion passes.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve by minute action the November 15, 2022 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Ingebretson. Any abstentions? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, the motion passes.
Now is the time that we invite anyone to come forward from the audience who wishes to speak with the council. As stated on the first page of the agenda, we do ask the following. Please state your name and address. Direct all questions and comments to the mayor and only the mayor. No personal attacks on staff or council will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will be all referred to our city manager. Questions posed by speakers may or may not be responded to by council members. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes, and the duplication of speakers are not allowed, and there will be no time extensions permitted. Please note that public hearings and ordinances each have their own comment period, so please hold your comments on those items until we reach them. Mr. Friel.
I've had a discussion with Craig Collins from city staff here in reference to blank pole lot. basically looks like a flagpole. It's got a large section to it, and then it'll have a pole-like section that comes out to a city right-of-way, being a street itself. The city of Casper has flagpole lot definition, but it applies to commercial only, not to residential. And if I get this wrong, somebody from city can correct me, but the definition for a flagpole lot right now is considered the width of a commercial driveway times 2. And the reason that it's applied for, that way for commercial is because of the fact of ingress and egress of vehicles needing to come and go from businesses. Craig says there is not a flagpole lot that applies to residential. Commercial would not fit for residential because 24 feet on a residential lot is just too wide. Why this is needed is you have a lot of properties in downtown Casper that are on one single lot, but they'll have 2 houses on them, one in the front and one in the back. So the proposal that's being made, and that I was asked to come ask the council itself if they would take it up and look at changing the definition or changing the ordinance. Basically looking at a residential, if you went off the same parameters of a driveway width, except for apply it to a residential driveway, so if somebody wanted to, their flagpole portion would be a driveway, it would need to be 10 feet wide minimum. And so that would be the definition of it. It wouldn't really need ingress and egress because it's not a business. It just needs a single 10-foot width. So I'm just asking, Mr. Mayor, that this be potentially taken up on a work session to be looked at, and maybe an ordinance change or an addition, just allowing flagpole lots for the residential application.
Any questions for Mr. Friel? No. So Carter, should we wait till around the table to bring that up if we wanted to, or is this a time during, we just wait till around the table? Okay, perfect, okay. All right, we'll bring that up around the table.
All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Friel.
Mayor, council, good evening. Elisa Ruckel, 718 Divine Avenue, advisor for our Casper Youth Council. And if it's okay, I'm going to turn it over to them for a brief update.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Lockery, 3431 Belmont Drive. So in City Youth Council, we are conducting a countywide comprehensive needs assessment to gather the most complete community-based data on needs, challenges, and objectives of our youth demographic. The CYC Youth Assessment will be a voluntary opportunity open to all NCSD high school age students, and will focus on 4 key areas: demographics, home, community, and general. Relevant data collected by the NCSD 2022/2023 climate survey will be included in our final report. Our survey will roll out in January, and we will follow up with 4 focus groups discussing during the time of mid-March in high schools.
Co-chair
Hi, I'm the co-chair of City Youth Council.
and point of contact for Kelly Walsh.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Bo Griffith, 915 South Lincoln Street,
Other co-chair.
and NC. Data collected from the survey and focus group discussions will be compiled into a comprehensive report of the Voice of Our Youth 2023 Natrona County Youth Report. The final report will be distributed to the City Council, County Commissioners, NCSD School Board, and other stakeholders as requested. We'd be happy to come back and present our findings to City Council.
Hello, I'm Anna Kempstead, 4438 East 24th Street, and I do the communications for the City Youth Council. And we will then work with the City of Casper City Council, Natrona County Commissioners, and NCSD to help bridge the gaps identified through the assessment. We'll also be reaching out to City Council to participate in another round of student forums in April. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, ladies, very much. So I'm assuming when you say NCSD, that's homeschool, that's Kelly Walsh High School, that's Natrona County High School, right?
Yes.
So and you're gonna send this survey out to all of the high school-aged kids in our city? Yes. And what is it that you're looking for from them? What are you after? What type of data is it that you're trying to collect to bring to us? Are you looking for ways for the council to help the youth in the community? What is the ultimate goal here?
Yes, we're mostly looking for problems that kids are having in our community and how the city council can help them, and also what students our age are looking for in the community and like what they're interested in mostly. Do you have any reading?
Other questions?
I think it's awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Got another question for you. Go ahead.
Nope, not a question. Just love what you're doing. I'm liaison to the Casper Youth Council, so I've been with you guys as you've been formulating this survey. I believe you sent it out to all of us. So if you haven't taken a chance to look through it, please do. I think it's very good, very comprehensive. So I'm looking forward to see what results we get back. I think it'll be a great opportunity for us to get a read on what the youth, other than asking my nephews, that's the only way to solicit that feedback I have. And so I'm really looking forward to the data that comes out of this, and hopefully there'll be some opportunities for us to work in coordination with you guys on the Youth Council to get some things done for the youth. So thank you. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
My name is Jessica Novotny, live at 243 Robin Street. So on Tuesday, November 8th, the City Council had their work session meeting. Councilwoman Ingebretson had let me know that this would be the work session in which discussions about Fire Station 3 would be had. I was interested in this meeting because, as you all are aware, or maybe remember, I was here a few weeks ago to tell my story in order to shine a light on a possible oversight regarding security at this particular fire station. However, upon listening to the discussion that was had not only about the fire station, but my own personal response to the situation that I was in, I felt the need to clarify a few things. The person trying to actively run me off the road did so from the stretch of A Street and Beverly, ending at the intersection of 12th and Beverly. In this time, they swerved their vehicle at me multiple times and even stopped in the middle of the road after the 4th Street and Beverly intersection to get out of their vehicle and come at me during heavy 5 o'clock traffic. They would not have been a law-abiding citizen if I had chosen to go all the way to the police station from there, and even if I did, my understanding is there isn't any kind of safe space there, as well as if there is an officer present, they're really only there to file a report, and then they're on the road again. When this person almost ran me into oncoming traffic on Beverly and 12th, the only thing that I could think of was, hey, that's a pretty new fire station. I bet they have cameras. That was the start and finish of my thought process of pulling into Fire Station 3. I have, nor will I ever have, the want for someone else who, as I understand fully, is not equipped to deal with violent crime to put their lives in unnecessary harm. I didn't want a fireman to come save me and potentially be harmed. I just wanted the interaction to be recorded. Why didn't I call the police? In my life, I've never been in that kind of life-threatening situation. No one can even begin to speculate how the mind works in these types of situations. When I thought of who I could call, I immediately thought of my family, not the police. I know that it may have been beneficial to call them, but again, the mind works completely differently in these types of situations, and until you're in one, no one can begin to speculate to know either. My understanding is the purpose of a safe room is to be safe from exterior threats. I understand that the station is not manned 24/7 and a person may be sitting there for hours. If someone is trying to get away from a dangerous situation or person, they aren't going to be bothered by sitting in a secure room for a few hours. In all reality, how much would it really cost to put a simple telephone in the room that only calls dispatch so that an officer that is equipped to handle these ordeals can come out as soon as they can? The price tag for the cameras also seems kind of excessive, and it really seemed like the only option that was explored, $15,000 for 2 cameras and a server. I mean, a simple Ring camera, and I know that got brought up, but not a doorbell, the actual camera that can be wired in. That really wouldn't cost the city much at all. $100 per camera and then $32 per year per camera to store the information. This is my question to you all, though. What is the value of a human life to you? And also, if a camera or 2 picks up additional crimes, accidents, or to help identify a person, where would the harm be in that? I can only imagine what that station cost, and is the only one in an extremely high-trafficked area between the bar up the road, the school, and the Section 8 housing being built right behind it. Why wouldn't it be beneficial to monitor the building and the grounds? The city would also not have to have someone to watch the camera because of the one incident in 25 years. That's the beauty of the Ring program, recording and storing the information, and can be brought up on a computer as needed. And on that topic as well, I would just like to say, yes, one incident in 25 years that is known about. We may never know how many people have been wandering the streets looking for a safe harbor, unaware one existed there. Victims of domestic violence in any capacity more often than not do not share their stories because they feel an immense amount of shame and guilt, even if it was not their fault. They don't share their stories because of people saying things like, well, why didn't they just leave? Or why didn't they call the police? Statements like this are extremely harmful to victims, and it's obvious that those who are against this have never needed protection from our first responders. I went to the Self-Help Center Task Force meeting on November 10th with Councilwoman Ingebretson at the invitation of Mayor Pacheco. They have discussions with multiple therapists, sheriff's office employees, and other professionals who specialize in helping those in need and to help those who have suffered in one way or another from domestic violence. The resounding consensus that I got from that meeting is that we are running out of resources. They have multiple programs and assistance for people, but they can only do so much. In the grand scheme of things, removing an additional resource that could help someone in the future and helping to relieve some pressure from the Self-Help Center is just basically taking another service away from those who need it. I understand why many of you said you don't want to advertise the existence of the safe room. The firemen aren't equipped to deal with violent crime, and nor should they have to. All I am saying is I feel like a compromise could be reached where the citizens do know that you do care for their safety and well-being, and not just about the money, as well as protection for our brave men and women that deal with emergencies on a daily basis. I am simply trying to offer an outside perspective on this small issue and offer up additional possible solutions. Your constituents voted for you because they believe in you all. A telephone in the safe room and a decent camera to record any and all incidents that happen on and around the station. This would simply be something to help protect the city's assets, protect the city employees, and also maybe protect the city's citizens.
Thank you. So before I open that up, I do want to let you know that I know the council had conversations. I know there was some conversation with our city manager to talk about cameras, what that looks like at the very minimum. I know that's on our city manager's to-do list, if I'm not mistaken, Carter, to look at that. And so I know for myself, at the very minimum, that's something that I did agree with, that we need to have something as far as cameras. We can afford that to some extent. I know we can't do, surround the whole, obviously, with everything, but I do agree that we need to have some type opportunity where that is recorded, if that is, and so forth. And the final thing that I want to say is nobody knows someone else's lived experience. My lived experience is different than your lived experience. And so when we understand what somebody goes through domestic violence, we don't understand that. And we can always come across, especially myself as a male, may not understand fully and completely what somebody would go through physical violence and so forth. And so that's why I invited Councilmember Ingebretson and yourself to that domestic violence task force that I sit on, and it's an important aspect of that. So I want to let you know that you were heard, and we want to continue to work on that, okay? And I just don't want to give you lip service, but I really want to make sure. Any others? Yep, Vice Mayor.
I wanted a point of clarity. The safe room that's in that particular fire station, it's not the issue getting you into it and leaving you there for a couple hours. The problem would be getting you into it. If the station isn't manned, and when you pull in there, they're out on a call, there's no way to even get you into there. So that's the real issue. It's not putting you in there and leaving you there until we can come back and get you safely. It's getting you into the room, period, if nobody's at the station. And when they're out on calls, nobody's there. And so, and you were heard, and we are looking for solutions. And I'm sorry you did go through that, but I will say again, it's very important. In 25 years, it's the first case we've ever had that's been brought to us. And we're doing something about it. So it does matter.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay. Please read the consent agenda titles.
Established December 6, 2022 as a public hearing date for consideration of
Transfer of ownership for liquor license number 37 from Charger Holdings LLC, doing business as Yellowstone Garage, located at 355 West Yellowstone, to 307 Repair Incorporated, doing business as Yellowstone Garage Bar and Grill, located at 355 West Yellowstone.
Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, establish, I am so sorry. I was all ready to go, Amanda. Go ahead.
One more.
Sorry.
New restaurant liquor license number 49 for MWKW Core, doing business as Little Shop of Burgers, located at 1040 North Center Street.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, establish the public hearing dates just read. Moved by Councilmember Kathy, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Any abstentions or nay votes?
I'll abstain from both, please.
Okay. Any others? Okay, please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
Councilmember Pollock abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of an ordinance approving a vacation, replat, subdivision agreement, and zone change for the Pasadena addition. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. Two exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Liz Becker to J. Carter Napier, dated November 10, 2022. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated October 31, 2022.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As indicated by the title read by the clerk, there are a number of things that are happening as a part of this motion, and as you can probably decipher with respect to the exhibits that you are reviewing here. First of all, Lot 1 is currently unplatted and unzoned. This motion, should it pass, would in fact correct that aspect of what you're seeing tonight. Secondly, the council's being asked to approve a zoning as a C2 general business zoning, which would apply throughout the area of interest here, as demonstrated in your exhibit. And then, of course, there is the reconfiguring of the subject property into 6 separate lots, of which some of these, as identified in concept by one of your speakers earlier, is a flag lot type access to public right-of-way. Council should note, however, that that is proposed to be improved by the developer with a future easement instrument that would be coming forward here in the near future.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers are allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of this ordinance pertaining to the Pasadena addition to please approach the lectern. Good evening.
Good evening. Bill Faringer with CEPI, 6080 Enterprise Drive, Casper. I'm here. The owners and developers of this parcel are both from out of state and could not be here tonight, so they asked that I come and represent them. This has been a project that's been ongoing for a number of months right now. Everybody knows the history of the Parkway Plaza down there and how it's been in and out. So these owners are dedicated to bringing this back and making it a very upstanding and popular location here in Casper again. And so this plat is basically the first step in this. We're working on a site plan right now that's getting ready to be submitted in the near future to show the improvements that the owners are planning to make. And so we'd like to have this plat approved and move forward so we can get this thing completed. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Bill? No, doesn't look like it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill. Any others who wish to speak in favor? Okay, at this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the ordinance pertaining to the Pasadena addition to please approach the lectern. Any of those who wish to speak in opposition? All right, there being no others who speak for or against the ordinance pertaining to the Pasadena addition, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance approving a vacation, replat, subdivision agreement, and zone change for the Pasadena addition.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Kathy, seconded by Councilmember Ingebretson. Discussion. Okay. Any amendments? All right, cast your vote. Please record the vote.
Councilmember McIntosh abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the transfer of ownership of retail liquor license number 36 to Occasions by Quarry Bar LLC. Please note that the LLC has been updated from Occasions by Quarry LLC to Occasions by Quarry Bar LLC. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. For exhibits, exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Trummel to J. Carter Napier, dated November 1, 2022. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated November 8, 2022. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication is published on the City of Casper website, dated November 9, 2022. And exhibit number 4, liquor license application filed October 12, 2022.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As council is aware, this is one of those liquor licenses that are fairly unique in the sense that it is required to be tied to its legacy address. And so you'll notice that that is in fact being maintained by the petitioner. And with respect to the petitioner's interest in keeping the license under question, license number 36, associated with the property on South Ash. Beyond that, Mr. Mayor, it would appear that everything is in order and consistent with state statute.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment, and public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the transfer of ownership of retail liquor license at number 36 to please approach the lectern. Those who wish to speak in favor. Okay, at this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition of the transfer of ownership of retail liquor license number 36 to please approach the lectern. Those who wish to speak in opposition. There being no one to speak for or against the transfer of ownership of retail liquor license number 36, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the consent minute action title.
Transfer of ownership for liquor license number 36 from Urban Market Wines, LLC, doing business as Urban Bottle Wine and Spirits, located at 410 South Ash Street, to Occasions by Quarry Bar, LLC, doing business as The Drinkery, a modern bar plus venue, by Quarry, located at 410 South Ash Street.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda item just read.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Gamroth, seconded by Councilmember Humphrey. Any discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Pollock abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Can somebody go get Amber, please? Thank you, Councilmember Sutherland. I think we already did the other one. Did you abstain from? Yeah, I think. Maybe not. Okay. Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance repealing and replacing ordinance number 16-97, codified as Chapter 8.08 of the Casper Municipal Code.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Anybody that wishes to speak for or against this? Okay, any discussion from the council? Amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance amending Chapter 9.08 Offenses Against the Person of the Casper Municipal Code to add Section 9.08.020 Malicious Harms based on race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, national origin, age, or disability.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Nail, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Skylar Cooper. My pronouns are he, they, and I live here in Casper on 1st Street. I'm a Casper College alumni and will be graduating with my bachelor's in English from the University of Wyoming's Casper Learning at a Distance program here in May. I am also the editor-in-chief for Expression Literary and Arts magazine on Casper's campus, and am the newest member of the Casper LGBTQ Advisory Committee. I wanted to take a moment today to thank the mayor and the council for their support of this non-discrimination ordinance. I was born and raised here in Casper and have faced firsthand some of the prejudice and adversity that queer people in our community face. It's difficult for me to relay the massive impact that legislation such like this has on my peace of mind. Growing up gay in a state like Wyoming can be a very difficult feat. I watched my peers enjoy relationships free of judgment, persecution, or hate, while partners with myself couldn't walk down halls at schools together holding hands without being called slurs, having things thrown at us, or being threatened merely for doing the same things that they were. This is one example of the day-to-day harassment that many individuals face who are doing nothing other than living their own lives, minding their own business, and these experiences are certainly not isolated to myself or to school settings. I took part in some focused research group studies conducted by Waller Hall Research discussing the state of LGBTQ culture and rights in Wyoming. These research studies have been an invaluable resource for Casper Pride in attempting to make the Casper community a safe and welcoming place for all persons, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. During this focus group, every single person that I was grouped with related fears and anxieties they face about living here in Casper. Every person disclosed personal stories about violence they have faced as being gay and trans in Wyoming. All of them also stated that the lack of legal protections against bias-based crimes is a large part of why they did not feel safe or comfortable to live here or be freely themselves in public. This hateful rhetoric continues to be a prevalent part of Wyoming's culture and is still not protected under state law, despite the prevalent reminders of the tragic murder of Matthew Shepard, who was targeted for the same reasons that we faced adversity every day. There are many good people in our community and here in our council who are attempting to change that culture and ensure that all persons in Casper are truly treated equally. Many people who spoke against the ordinance last meeting stated that laws like this give additional protections to marginalized individuals under the law. Anyone who lives within these experiences will tell you this is simply not true. I wish it was as simple as all persons are equal under the law, and if that were true, we wouldn't need ordinances or laws like this. I would like to encourage anyone who doesn't think that this ordinance is necessary, or people who think that everyone have the same rights under the Constitution and therefore are treated the same within our society, to reflect on a few scenarios. How would you feel if you were walking down the street, holding hands with your husband or wife, and someone followed behind you, yelling slurs and profanities? Imagine if your children or yourself or someone you cared about was denied housing because their renter refuses to rent to two unrelated adults who are legally married. How would you feel if you were threatened physically with violence or verbal violence because you don't fit into traditional stereotypes that society has for members of a specific gender or sex? Have you ever experienced harassment due to being born a woman, or the color of your skin, or your age, or your religion? Because people I know and myself personally have experienced these very things. These things do happen here every day. You may just have been fortunate enough not to experience them yourself. This ordinance protects everyone. As one of the council members said very eloquently at the last hearing, Every person has a sexuality, a gender identity, an assigned sex at birth, a set of religious beliefs, even if that is to abstain from believing, a race, an ethnicity, and so on. This means every person is protected. You cannot be targeted under this legislation for being straight. This ordinance also applies if you are assaulted, denied jobs or housing for being Christian, Catholic, or Mormon. While this ordinance does not force everyone to respect one another, it does take steps to show that Casper is a community that is moving forward towards understanding and tolerance for people with different views, perspectives, and lifestyles, and will not tolerate bias-based crimes towards anyone, including straight white Christian men, and also, yes, members of traditionally marginalized communities, such as those in the LGBTQ community or people of color. Thank you again, Mayor and Council members, for your support of this bill that helps us move in the right direction and helps make hopefully everyone, but I know at least myself and members of my family, friends, and community feel a little safer walking on the street, because at least, hopefully now, bias-based crimes and assaults will be recognized for the large impacts they have on every person in our community.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hi, Kate.
Hi, good evening. Kate Allen. I'm here with the LGBT Advisory Committee. I'd like to first thank the council for your support of this ordinance and for your support and your continuing support of the advisory committee generally. I know we all appreciate it. A few points on this ordinance, and I'll try not to repeat too much of what Skylar just said, but this ordinance does not give any group special rights over any other group. Like Councilmember Pollock said, and like Skylar just said, everybody has a gender, everybody has a sexual orientation, everybody has a race. This protects everybody, not just people like me or other marginalized groups. We've heard some commentary that we don't need this ordinance because the Constitution protects everybody equally under the law. The Constitution doesn't say anything about losing your job because you're gay, or being evicted from your home because you're trans, or similar things like that. Now there's some, federal legislation that may protect here and there. It's a patchwork. And you don't always get an easy remedy for it. This ordinance fills those gaps. This ordinance would provide a local remedy so people who've been harmed don't have to go bring the federal government into it. Second, I've heard commentary, you can't legislate decency, and I think that's true. But this ordinance doesn't ask you to believe a certain way. It doesn't tell you what to think. It doesn't limit your First Amendment rights to say what you want to say. All it does is limit certain actions that directly harm other people based on personal characteristics of that person. And third, on more of a personal note, my wife and I moved here in 2018, and at that time, one of the only things we knew about Wyoming was that Matthew Shepard was murdered here. Wyoming has a reputation, whether it's fair or not, that makes it very difficult for a person like me to want to move here. Turns out it's great, but that aside, this ordinance would have gone a long way in making us feel more welcomed and comfortable when we moved. I'm a lawyer, there's probably enough of us in the world, but my wife is a specialist physician, and she's the only specialist in her field in the entire state. My wife makes this state safer and a better place, and we almost didn't move here because we were afraid of being a gay couple in a state with a very poor record on gay rights. An ordinance like this would reduce that friction in recruiting talent, in recruiting employers, and generally in making the economy a better and more inclusive economy. Finally, just because I have a little time left, I want to say I was in communication with your city attorney, Mr. Henley, as he and his team prepared this, and I was very impressed with how thoroughly he went through the legal requirements and made sure to, dot every I, cross every T, make sure that this is a good ordinance. This was not a slapdash endeavor. This was really well thought out, and I think really gets to the heart of non-discrimination. And it's just the right thing to do. So, thank you.
Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad you and your wife chose not only Wyoming, but Casper as well.
Thank you. We really like it here.
Thanks, Kate.
Hello.
Hello again.
Should I say my name and address again?
If you wouldn't mind for the record, thank you.
Sarah Lockery, 3431 Belmont Drive. I will be speaking in favor of the ordinance today. I would like to give more of a youth perspective on this. A lot of times we talk about how youth tend to want to move away from Wyoming and branch out and go to bigger and better places, or bigger and better, in my opinion. That it seems more exciting to branch out, especially growing up here. I was born and raised in Casper. I've never moved out of the house that I was raised in, and I come from a pretty average family, average working people, and it has crossed my mind to move and go places, but I think one of the things that is most important, and one of the things that will help youth and the future leaders of our community to stay, is that safety and feeling that they're accepted and heard. I think that this will help a lot, and not only helping the people that are in those power positions or normal day people of adults, but also kids, being able to grow up and see that the leaders of your community and the adults of your community who you're supposed to look up to and trust are working in your favor. And every single youth that lives in Casper, or in the future, or any person to live in Casper, will be protected by this. And I think that's what's important, is it's not leaving a single kid out, no matter who that kid is. It's not leaving a single human out, no matter who that human is. And I think that this is the step in the right direction of making our community a place for youth to stay and grow and thrive with the community. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any others who wish to speak for or against? Good evening.
Good evening, Dennis Steensland, 533 South Washington. I didn't come to speak at all tonight, but I would like somebody to read through 908.20. I tried to get a copy of Mr. Hanley's new amendment, and I wasn't able to get it until after tonight's vote, but I don't think anybody knows what the 02 deals with. It's very extensive. It's a lot of legal talk from listed at the work session. So I would like somebody to share that with us. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, would you mind sharing a little bit on that? Sure, if you want. Yep. Mr. Steens, Dennis, do you want a copy of it, or do you want somebody to explain it to you?
I need a copy of it for me to try to understand.
Gotcha. Okay, we can get you a copy of it then.
I think anybody speaking tonight doesn't realize that that was added, and it's not included in the original.
So we're working at doing an amendment tonight, and we're going to probably discuss a little bit more about that amendment here in our discussion, I would imagine.
So, okay. So you can't get a copy of this until tonight, until it's passed or not passed?
Well, I mean, until it's added. I mean, because it's not officially added into it, because it's an amendment, so it wouldn't have been in there, because what's currently in the ordinance now is what's been out. But we do have the amendments coming in, and they're not officially added yet. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, and I don't know how we can speak on it as a public until we understand that, but that's what I need.
Okay.
Excuse me, that's what I need. Everybody knows I'm not computer literate, and
no, I hear you.
Paper copy in order for me to.
Because I think it was in the packet. It was in the pack, and I understand you're not
you don't like to use that, it was in the packet, so, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Henley, would you mind just touching on the highlights of the amendment? I know we put an age restriction in and a couple other things, so would you mind touching on those for the people that are here and viewing us tonight?
No, not a problem at all, thank you. As the council knows, and many out in the audience know, that the last session, the first reading, there was an amendment and age was added, kind of based upon the comments of one of the speakers. And as a result of that, I think most people at the time and in our discussion at the work session, most people seemed to be thinking when that amendment was made, we were talking about the elderly and they were being discriminated against. They were the more vulnerable type of ones. And in looking at the federal legislation, we thought that would be kind of a good model. And so we did work on an amendment to limit it to just for people over 50 years old, which is a little bit more than the federal law on age employment discrimination goes. That starts at 40. And we thought that would maybe make it more limited, make people feel a little bit more comfortable, that it's just not going to be broad and any type of age can bring any type of claim if they felt that they were being discriminated against. And so we thought that would be a little bit more specific and would be advantageous for the ordinance and for its operation and for our officers to respond to people when they made complaints of that. In addition, we wanted to make sure that the ordinance would protect the, thank you if you've got that handy, would also further define certain terms within the ordinance. And we actually had the ordinance talk about the concepts of malice and prejudice, and those were not defined well. You have the dictionary definitions which can be used when you look at the ordinances, and most of the times that is the case, but since people had complained about some of the terms not being particularly well defined, we thought we would define those. And then in addition, the phrase discriminate against, again, another definition of that. And dwelling unit, we put that in there for protections for people that might have homeless shelters or group living circumstances. And then we defined the terms gender identity and gender expression, which are a part and parcel of the ordinance.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Others who wish to speak for or against? Good evening.
Brad Shirley, 834 East 13th. And the stuff that I've written down was after the first reading, so some of this may sound, I don't know, out of place. In 2015, my wife worked for the Natrona County Health Department. In 17 and a half years, she was never written up, never had a bad evaluation. In July of that year, she took a 2-week vacation. When she returned from work, her immediate supervisor and department head fired her for age and wage discrimination. We no longer need you. She was given a letter that stated, you're an at-will employee and we really don't want you here. If this ordinance had been in place at that time, I don't think it would have done anything to help her, because in a right-to-work state, you don't have any rights. In 1970, my cousin graduated from high school and he joined the Navy in 70. In 1971, he was killed aboard ship. The Department of Navy told my aunt and uncle he had committed suicide. He was so badly beaten, he had a closed casket funeral. My uncle was a veteran of World War II and survived a prisoner of war camp. The Navy never told them what really happened. I always thought he was killed because people thought he was gay, so I actually know about discrimination. I think the biggest discriminator out there is government. If this ordinance had is what we really need. I'd like to see it put on a ballot so the whole population could vote on it. Every member of the city councils voted in to look out for the best interests of the majority, not to push the will of the minority onto the majority. I also believe it will promote frivolous lawsuits and undermine First Amendment right to free speech. According to CNN, under President Biden, violent crime is down 4.5%. We would have to see the police reports on property damage to know if it's regular vandalism or a hate crime against anyone. And we'd also need to see the police reports on assault to know if it's a hate crime or domestic violence. Personally, I think it's hard to prove discrimination. And you can't mandate morals, and if you could, we wouldn't need a police force, and everybody would just do exactly what's expected of them. Not since 1860 has there been this much distrust in government. And I don't know, I'm going to quit reading some of the other stuff that I had down there. In my opinion, one of the greatest threats to life and limb in Casper is speeding and people texting and driving. On November 7th, there was a deer killed 1 block from my house and on a street that's got a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. How do you run over and kill a deer? Could have been a kid. And thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Shirley? No. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor. My name is Seth Hollier. I'm one of the owners of The Void at 128 East 2nd Street. I think that there is a need in discussing the age demographic to also include the youth. We have personally found that there is a general consensus of the youth in this town being discriminated against in one way or another. And I find it a little troubling that we specifically exclude youth in this age discrimination section. So we would like, somebody to at least look into potentially adding the youth demographic into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Seth? No? Thanks, Seth.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Keith Nakbar. My office is on First Street. I'm an attorney here in town. I'm also a small business owner in town. I'm here again to speak in opposition to this ordinance because it introduces a host of problems that I don't think have been thought through. What is wrong with Wyoming, Casper, Wyoming, treating everyone equally under the law? Contrary to what one council person said at the last meeting, this doesn't just deal with assault and battery. It deals with public accommodation, housing, and employment, areas of which are all comprehensively covered under federal law, with a very elaborate system of administrative regulations, case law, court decisions, and statutes. This is the city getting involved in an issue that has many layers of complexity. Do we even know how many hate-based or bias crimes would be affected by this ordinance and the adoption of this ordinance? Most of the examples given by one speaker this evening would be unaffected by this ordinance because speech is not prohibited. The ordinance does not protect everyone. It simply gives certain groups special protection. It only protects those who fall into selected categories or put themselves into those categories. If the concern is assault and battery, then why not make assault and battery a jailable offense in all situations? If the concern is property damage, why not make property damage a jailable offense in all situations? I'm particularly interested in how the city envisions enforcement of the provisions regarding public accommodation, housing, and employment. Remember, you are creating a crime. So if an employer is alleged to have violated this ordinance, it's a crime. Their attorney is going to tell them, do not give a statement. If they don't give a statement, then the only information the city prosecutor will have will be that provided by the alleged victim, the complaining party. There will be no depositions. There will be no written discovery. The only mechanism to investigate such a complaint is through search warrants, and I talked about that last time. There's no way to thoroughly and properly investigate a claim of discrimination in one of these areas of the law in the criminal arena. That's why the feds have never made any of these things criminal, because you can't do it. So how is an employer to defend themselves? They'll be brought into court simply because they're not going to make a statement. The city prosecutor's only going to have the information provided by the complaining party. There's no depositions, which means where you bring witnesses in and you examine them under oath. None of that applies in a criminal context. This is not workable. So I'd be interested in hearing from any of you or the city attorney exactly how these things will be investigated. How will they be vetted? Employment discrimination cases particularly are falsely alleged all the time, all the time. The civil arena has a mechanism for vetting those cases and getting rid of the ones that have no merit. And the ones that do have merit go to trial. But when they go to trial, they have been through the discovery process, depositions of witnesses, written discovery, proof. All that is shown before trial. In a criminal case, that's not the case. The only information that's provided is that given by the prosecutor. You are putting business in this community at a serious disadvantage and a serious risk of being prosecuted with a crime simply because of this ill-conceived mechanism to investigate claims that are already covered by federal law. The amendment, the definitions given, add even more complexity to this. Gender identity means a person's internal sense of gender. So how exactly is an employer or a housing provider supposed to know what someone's internal sense of gender is? That is ridiculous.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Nakbar? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Kyle True. I'm at 1541 Diamond Drive. Okay, thank you for being on the city council. I still have some of my Tuesday nights. You guys have none of yours. And then you get together and talk about some really intriguing stuff like liquor licenses, and then you get the fun stuff. So here we go. This is America. So in America, we have all sides of an issue, and I think that's a brilliant way to try to get at the truth, is to look at it from all sides. So I hope you're ready for a little diversity. I'm going to look at it from a little different way that others have. I think, well, first of all, you guys don't run for city council because you want to make it a worse place to be. I assume everyone's intention, you're giving up a lot of your time to be here because you want things to be better. But as my wife has to explain to me sometimes, or my kids, my intentions are really not what matter to them, it's my actions. If my intentions are one thing, but the effect is another, then I need to deal with the effect, not the intentions. So I assume everyone's intention are for a better community, a more thriving community, whether it be in the way we treat each other or our economy. But I want to talk about the effects I think I see of this that are really separate from the intentions. One of the things I think is inappropriate about this is protected classes should be something that is inherently the way you are. You're born your gender, you're born your race, et cetera, et cetera. But gender expression, by definition, is how someone chooses to express their gender. And so a choice that someone makes, I think we should be liable for things we do by choice. So I think it's kind of inappropriate to have that in there. It's also not really well defined, as others have said. I don't understand the application of this. If someone comes to work and says that they think they're the other gender, is the employer now legally obliged to allow them to use a restroom that some other employees that are traditionally, like in 1950, they would be known to be a female? If the females at a place don't feel comfortable with a 1950s man coming in and using their restroom, is the employer liable for the discontent that goes on there? I think this is not well defined. I think this is really sloppily written. For example, injuring, defacing, or destroying property of another. If you cut out the A, B, C, and D, the sentence reads, "No person shall is guilty of injuring, defacing, or destroying property of another" under this section. No person shall is guilty of injuring, defacing, or destroying property. Reading it carefully and taking out some of the subordinate clauses, that's not a sentence. So I don't think that's well written. I think you could take out all of the, because of one or more protected characteristics of that person. This would be a great law. Well, you shouldn't assault anybody. You shouldn't do any of this. There's no reason to have that. In addition, rescue mission is not caught up in some of this language. An institution, club, or place of accommodation, or association is neither organized for profit and its primary purpose the provision of accommodations or services that are available on a non-membership basis. That makes them subject to this. And I worry about that. We have a Christian community in this town that is highly motivated to help people get off drugs, pick themselves up and go. And when I taught at the rescue mission, we had a lot of people come through who said, look, you can go to Billings for 60 days. You can go to Denver for, usually you can get 90 days. But in Casper, in 3 days, they kick you out unless you're ready to work on your problems. So they said, you come to Casper when you're ready to get fixed, because they take it seriously here and they have a very rigorous program to get off of drugs. And it's not that easy to do by yourself. There are religiously motivated people that if this applies and it says they have to begin to hire and allow a person to say, I'm going to be with the females, even though I'm biologically a male, in recovery, the support for the rescue mission may dry up and it may just go away. So I hope that that can be a protected asset of our community. Those are some of my concerns. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen and to think of all this stuff. I'm not denying everybody wants to make this a better place. I just think, well, there are other places in this where there are sentences that aren't accurate. Whoever wrote this, okay, it didn't come across right. There's some ors that need to be added. There's some commas. There's some places. I'd be happy to work with you afterwards, but okay, sorry.
Any questions for Mr. True? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Terry Drake, 6231 South Spruce. Thank you for allowing me some time. I was born in Casper, lived the majority of my life here, so I'm very familiar with all the hate and bigotry that everybody's speaking about today, and the desire that people want to do something about it. I'd really like to start off by saying my statement's not going to be as eloquent as Keith's was at the last reading or at this reading. He had many valid points and made a very strong argument of why the council should reconsider at this time. The general perception is that the council completely disregarded what he had to say, and to me that's a little disheartening. Many of the points made and the ones that I personally see and hear the most have not been discussed by the council, at least during the sessions made available to the public. And my intention is for the council to reconsider until more research is done from all angles. What's being considered here can be used as a weapon in the future against citizens and possibly small businesses. One of the reoccurring statements from council members is that we need more teeth to prosecute these assaults and vandalisms. Doesn't that imply that our current assault and vandalism laws are inadequate? or that maybe the Casper Police Department and our court systems have failed in the enforcement and prosecution of these laws. I noticed that in the penalty section, the penalties being proposed are exactly the same as the current laws on assault and vandalism, $750 fine and up to 6 months in jail. Kind of begs the question if this is all really just virtue signaling. Hate laws in nature are discriminatory. People have the right to believe what they believe. And I strongly believe that laws like these infringe on those people's rights. Hate crime laws are not needed for criminal law because the law makes it illegal to assault anybody or vandalize anybody's property. And it already allows for harsher sentencing should the presiding judge decide that the act is especially heinous. As written in Section C, I think it can and will lead to infringement of citizens' First Amendment rights. It will allow for restriction and or the prosecution of speech if the offended party feels they're being denied equal enjoyment of services in public places as it's written. Supporters of hate crime legislation suggest that primary reason for codification of hate crime laws is to send a strong message of tolerance and equality, signaling to all members of society that hatred and prejudice on the basis of identity will be punished with extra severity. However, hate crime laws may actually be accomplishing the opposite effect because they encourage citizens to view themselves not as members of our society, but as members of a protected group. The enactment of hate crime legislation at the federal and state levels has led to unintended consequences and unfair practices. This is why today the controversy regarding the effectiveness of hate crime laws is debated, and people question whether this type of legislation is beneficial to society. In addition, there is no valid proof that hate crime enhanced penalties are decreasing or deterring hate crimes, but the harsher punishments are clearly leading to more hardened criminals. There's ample data showing that these laws are at best ineffective and at worst counterproductive in actually advancing equality goals. Committed bigots and their supporters are not likely to abandon their beliefs in response to censorship or punishment, but to the contrary may well be more resentful and hardened in their attitudes. Moreover, attempts to suppress their ideas inevitably draws more attention to those ideas. We just evidenced that with Kyrie Irving's tweet about Hebrews to Negroes. It's now the 6th most viewed documentary on Amazon when nobody had seen it before. Creating protected groups goes against what we should strive for as a community. It merely drives the wedge deeper into the current divides that we see every day. I believe more critical discussion is necessary before we rush into creating hate crime laws. I borrowed some sections from two people that I strongly believe in and follow. One is Nadine Strawson. She's the former president of the ACLU from 1991 to 2008. She's considered one of the foremost experts on the freedom of speech. And Brianna Alongi from Pace University in the Pace Law Review in an article titled "The Negative Ramifications of Hate Crime Legislation. It's Time to Reevaluate Whether Hate Crime Laws Are Beneficial to Society." And I think that before the council goes much further, I think that those are two things that we really should read and look at. We can't legislate morality. We can try and educate about it and do our best from there and combat it with counter speech rather than criminal offenses. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Drake? Okay. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it, ma'am. Any others? Good evening.
Good evening. Riley Jorgensen, 4423 Moonbeam. I just want to open by making an analogy. I know people think I'm transgender. People think that we're big, we're scary, all we want to do is harm others. But I think of us more like spiders or bats. There are plenty of stories out there that people have made us these big, scary creatures that our only intent is to harm people. But really, we're more scared of other people than you are of us. We are basically helpless creatures that don't have any protection, you know. I am terrified to go into public places to use the restroom. When I was in high school, I would drive off campus to my grandparents' house, to a nearby friend's house, because I didn't feel safe using the restrooms that were provided to me. When I was in middle school, I was actually given a key and had one bathroom on campus that I was allowed to use. And no matter where I was, I had to go completely across campus to use that one specific restroom. And I don't think that was okay or fair to me. So when I was in high school and I could drive, I went off campus because I felt safer not being around people. And I'm just scared to live in this world. You know, I'm terrified to walk out that door into the dark of night when I'm not surrounded by the safety of numbers, because I'm afraid of what people are going to do to me. So I think having an ordinance like this would really go a long way to help people feel safe and protected in our community. And I just thank you guys with your support.
Any questions? No? Okay.
Hi, I'm Anna Kempstead, 4438 East 24th Street. It's hard to follow that up, and I didn't expect to speak tonight, but I just want to say that I have not been personally persecuted for gender or sexual orientation, but that's, like, I'm the only person who could say I have, and so are the people being represented here tonight. Especially in the youth, it's hard for people to say that hate crime shouldn't be a separate group or that it shouldn't be represented separately, because sorry, okay. Anyways, it's been said here tonight that it'll make them feel more excluded and it'll make a separation in society, but there already is a separation in society, and this is just trying to mend that separation and represent more people, and more, like, the crimes that are being committed are already being committed. They should just be represented for the people that are being, like, hurt. Yeah, thank you.
Any questions for Anna? No.
Thanks.
Thanks, Anna. Good evening.
Tim Calbert, 4311 Mink Street. As a business owner, forgive me for my ignorance of not reading what we're talking about, but if what I'm understanding is, as a business owner, if I'm wanting to hire a person that I would like to, and if this amendment keeps me from doing so, I would be against it. My company represents certain people, as in their ability to work, just what we have expectations that our people within a community expect from us as a company. So if this amendment goes against my ability as a business owner to make a decision of whom I would like to hire, then I would be against it. If it does not, then my words are nothing. Good. Any questions?
Any questions? Oh, go ahead, Councilman Gamroth.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess I would just love a point of clarification from the city attorney. My understanding is that unless you had a candidate that was equally qualified as any of your other applicants, and you chose not to hire that person based exclusively on the fact that they identified a certain way, and there was overt, direct evidence of that that could be proved beyond a reasonable doubt, only under those circumstances would you be affected by this ordinance, is my understanding. City Attorney, if you could confirm or deny, thanks.
I believe that's pretty consistent with the language of the ordinance. Basically, that they have to refuse to hire a person based upon discrimination against the person with respect to, and that discrimination has to be based upon the employee's actual characteristics, not upon their work ethic or their abilities. Obviously, if you have someone and you're a private employer and you're looking to make money, you've got to hire the best employee you can find that's productive and the like. That may be someone who has one of these characteristics, may not be. So as long as that's not your driving decision, your decision is not driven by that conclusion or that consideration, then you shouldn't have concerns.
And if there's only one applicant?
If there's only one applicant, you need a person, I assume that person's going to get the job, but if you don't need the person, or you don't feel that the person who's applied is appropriate for the job because they're not going to work hard, or they don't have the education or experience that you need, then you just don't fill that position until you repost it when more people are available.
Do I still get that choice?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but your choice, it's your business. Yeah.
That's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
As long as that way it is.
Mhm.
I don't want my rights as a business owner taken away for something I would like to have the community experience, as in our professionalism.
I mean, what I would say to that point, and I don't want to get too in the weeds here because we'll get into our discussion. To that point, it's really your decision as a business owner to make that. As long as you're making that decision based upon, the fact that depending upon what the work is, if they're able-bodied, able to do the work, they're very good, whether they are a woman or they're a man or anything in between, and you're like, I get to make that decision as a boss, but you're not basing it on those characteristics by saying, well, you know what, I only hire men, and it comes out and it's about without a reasonable doubt that you're just hiring men because you don't want to hire women, then that can be problematic. But you get to make that choice.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Others? Okay, now's the time where we do a discussion within the council. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So, Mr. Nakbar, you brought up some really good points, and I've had some email discussions with you along the way, which has led to, by the way, some of the amendments that are going to be offered tonight. So I don't want you to think that the council's not, that we're immune to suggestions, because we're certainly taking some of those. But there are bigger things at play here for me. And the most glaring thing that's came out tonight and has really struck home to me is nobody wants to have a special class. Well, I don't think you understand. This is for every single citizen. No matter how you identify, no matter what you do, this includes you. Now, you may be a straight white male, and so it may not be as prevalent to you because you're not facing the discrimination that, say, someone who has gender identity is. But the bottom line is, it's protecting every single person, and be thankful if you're one of them that it doesn't affect like it does some other people. But when I was elected as an extremely conservative guy, and the platform I ran on was to take care of all of our constituents, all of our people in our community, regardless of majority, minority, whatever it is. And from where I sit, this is absolutely the right thing to do. This goes to intent. That's what this is about. It's about intent. That's why there's several levels of murder. There's homicide, there's manslaughter, there's murder 1, murder 2. It's all about the intent. What intent did you have when you committed that crime? And that's what this is for me. This is about the intent. If you are literally harming someone because they're different than you, or they're more vulnerable than you, then you should pay a price. And we're going to make sure you do with this ordinance. And I'm 100% okay with it all the way. Are there some ins and outs and some tweaking that could be done? Sure. And will that happen? I'm sure it will continue to evolve. But in the meantime, I and the rest of this council are committed to protecting everyone that lives here in our community. And keep this in mind. 2 states in the entire country, 2, don't have this legislation, and we're one of them. So look who's in the minority now. And we're going to change that. We're going to change that way of thinking. And this goes all the way to religion, to race. It covers everything that we could think of. And that's why we're doing it. So I'm sorry that some people are having a difficult with it, but for me, it's the right thing to do. Now, there are loopholes, and I understand that because I've read this. I'm an employer myself, and this is a right-to-work state that we live in. You get to pick and choose who works for you, how long they work for you, why they don't work for you anymore. As long as the intent isn't to fire someone and take away their income or to kick them out of their home so they have no place to live because of who they identify as or because of their religion or whatever it is, then you should have no issues. For me, this is about intent. It's about malicious, which the word's in there several times, assault, assaulting people. This doesn't take your First Amendment right away. It doesn't stop you from calling a black man the N-word. It doesn't stop you from calling a gay person that F-word that nobody likes. That's your First Amendment right. If you want to be ignorant and mean, you can do those things. We would ask you not to. We would hope we live in a better society than that. But what this is going to do is stop you from harming them, stop you from taking their jobs, kicking them out of their homes, and assaulting them or inciting assault against them. And for me, I'm sorry, this is really, really easy for me to do. So that's what I have.
Councilmember Pollock.
Thank you very much. Just a couple things I'd like to raise for the council based on what we've heard tonight. The first of those, there's been some testimony that kind of makes it seem like that the sky is falling, that this is opening a can of worms that no one else in the country has experienced before, and I'd like to draw attention to some further information on that. We've got, I'm looking at a website right now that lists by state the percentage of population protected. This is on the non-discrimination sort of element of this exclusively, but it says, protected against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity in private employment, housing, and public accommodation. So nearly the identical language to what we've got in our ordinance. Alabama, 2 cities. Alaska, 1. Arizona, 9. California is 100% protected. Delaware, 100% protected. Florida, 28 cities in Florida have a similar ordinance on the books. Georgia, 12. Idaho, 12. Indiana, 19. And, the list goes on through the entire United States. So the notion that this is sort of a new idea that is untested and unproven and is going to cause all these issues, I think is really overblown. We've got plenty of cities that have gone before us that have blazed this trail. We're not reinventing the wheel here, and these are municipalities. So the notion that there are no municipalities, states, or counties that are adding additional layers of protection on top of federal protections that already exist is false. So I would like to, maybe give the council some peace of mind on that front, that this is not uncharted territory, and we have plenty of places around the country that have done something very similar to this for their citizens. So I feel comfortable, perfectly comfortable, with the direction that we are headed in with this. And I did have one other point, but maybe it'll come up as more people talk. So I'll raise my hand again if I need one. Thanks.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Thank you. I'll just respond to a couple of things I think we've heard tonight. I want to just reiterate, I think, what Councilmember Nell mentioned, that, and several others have also, that these aren't categorically directed toward any single person. Everybody's covered. So let's just keep reminding ourselves of that. We all fit into those categories in one way or another, and are therefore protected by this. I also think it's important to remember that we've had tremendous outpouring of support for this work from businesses in our community. We also know that businesses that want to consider coming here want to know about what we're doing as it relates to non-discrimination. So I think that this is in service of our community and our business community in that regard as well. I think it's also worth making a distinction between hate crime laws and non-discrimination laws. This is a non-discrimination ordinance. Hate is not in the language here in this ordinance, and hate is a feeling, and we can't legislate feelings, but we can legislate actions, and discrimination is an action. And so there are ways that we can look at that and see how people have acted against others in a way that is discriminatory. And I think that's a responsibility that we have to each and every individual in our community. I just want to state again that intention matters. It matters in law at the city level. It matters in law at the national level. It matters in law at the international level. Intention is part of our legal system. And so to say that we can't put that in there is just simply inaccurate. I think that somebody mentioned that this is complex. Okay, that's okay. I don't think we should shy away from things just because they're complicated. And having this law and this ordinance in place it's a way to not necessarily always prevent heinous crimes. We hope that it does, but it's also a way to hold people accountable when they behave in ways that harm other humans. And I'm not sure how that's in any way something that we can't stand behind. So I just want to remind us all that this is about holding people accountable and making others aware that we're not going to stand for this in our community. So that's it.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. First off, I'd like to thank everybody who has spoken tonight and who's contacted all of us. All of us council members, we've all spoken to a lot of people. I've had some good conversations, been asked some very good questions, which hopefully have been answered. Some of those conversations led to additions and corrections in the ordinance, which were needed, and thank you for bringing those to our attention. It's always wonderful to see people being active in the community. I love to see people come and talk and be active in their community. An overwhelming majority of the people that I have heard from are for this ordinance. I didn't comment on the first reading of this proposed ordinance as I felt that everyone else did a great job of addressing the reasons that the ordinance is needed. I agree with everything that's been said by my fellow council members, the pros and cons of this ordinance. I agree with Councilmember Cathy when he said that we can't legislate away hate. Unfortunately, we can't. I really wish we could. As I, for one, am fed up with all of the hate and discontent in the world. Growing up here in Casper, I think we were sheltered from a lot of the hate and things that permeate the rest of the world. However, over the past few years, we have seen more and more of it entering into our community. Excuse me. This has been very evident in a few of the messages that I've received from people who are against this ordinance. Thankfully, the overwhelming majority of the messages I have received have been in favor of the ordinance. The one thing I've noticed with some who have contacted me that they are against it is that they have not taken the time to read it and understand what exactly the ordinance says. Thankfully, there are many of you that have and have found some good things in there to question. Another thing I've noticed is that a majority of those against it assume that it's all about the LGBTQ community. I want to remind you there's 10 protected classes, and less than 1/3 of those protected classes fall under the guise of the LGBTQ community. Yet most of the objections I have heard are because of those 3 classes of people. While I understand people's religious objections to certain things, religion should not be used as an excuse to discriminate against anyone. Christ himself, while not agreeing with people's choices, he did not condemn them or stone them. As a matter of fact, he said, "He who is without sin can cast the first stone." I'm pretty sure none of us are perfect or without sin. This ordinance doesn't say you have to quit having your preconceived thoughts about certain people. It just says if you discriminate against or assault someone based on those prejudices that you have, then you will be held criminally responsible for your actions. It's about accountability. Like many of you have pointed out, every member of our community is protected by this ordinance. It just adds penalties for your actions when you use hate or bigotry to justify your actions. If you've never been on the receiving end of bigotry and prejudice, then congratulations. I, for one, hope you never have to be subjected to that. I, however, have been, as have many members of my family and many of my friends. I received a message from one community member who stated that her African-American daughter was subjected to this type of assault while visiting Billings, Montana. The experience that young woman went through broke my heart. I cannot and will not abide a bully, and that is exactly what this is protecting against. Another citizen communicated that since moving here, her husband has been discriminated against because he is in a minority. That's unbelievable to me that Casper, Wyoming would do such things. We're a very welcoming community, and it saddens me when some members of our community allow themselves to behave in this manner. I also found it appalling that a couple of the messages we received ended with hate speech against the members of council, accusing us of being left-wing and woke, and that we were needed kicked out of office. I've heard this word woke being used as a swear word against anyone who believes different than the person using it, so I was curious as to what the word actually means, so I looked it up. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, woke means aware of and actively attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. To me, that sounds like Christianity, like being a good Wyomingite, being aware of and protecting others. That's the way I was raised. The dictionary goes on to add an additional meaning: disapproving, politically liberal, as in matters of racial and social justice, especially in a way that is considered unreasonable or extreme. So I assume that is the definition that these individuals are using to insult us, saying that we are unreasonable to expect people to treat one another with respect. Obviously, these individuals do not treat people with respect based on their communications that I received. So I just wanted to give a little bit of advice to everyone. If you expect your opinion to be listened to, and most of you have abided by these, I would advise you to, one, educate yourself on what exactly it is that we're doing. Read the ordinance. If you do not understand something, borrow a dictionary. We do have a library. You can actually access dictionaries and law dictionaries online, or call one of us or the city attorney office and ask questions, or like many of you did tonight, ask questions here. Thank you for those who have done so. I've enjoyed those conversations. Number two, actually make an informed statement as to why you feel that this is not an ordinance that we need. For an example of that, watch the video and also the attorney that spoke tonight. He did a great job of putting together his thoughts. Please do not end your opinions with threats and hateful speech against the council. That just makes us hit the delete button. If you had a good argument against the ordinance, it would not matter because you just lost any chance that you had of us listening to your opinion because of the way you presented it. We are people and we treat everyone with respect, so we just ask the same respect in return. Thank you to the majority of you who have done so with respect. It is greatly appreciated. We have seen nationally a huge increase in hate against Asians. This came to my mind when I was reading through this, because people blame China for the COVID pandemic. How ignorant can the common person be to think that beating up a Vietnamese grandmother will be revenge against China for supposedly creating the COVID virus? But it's happened. I hope that it never happens in Casper, Wyoming. I think we're better than that, and I hope that we never have to prosecute anyone with this ordinance. However, I am for this ordinance and will vote in favor of it because we need to protect all of us from the hate and the intent, and that is the intent of this ordinance. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Gamroth.
Geez. Yeah, I don't have much to add, honestly. I think I've essentially represented my opinion as well as I could in the past couple meetings we've had on this. I did just want to concur with my colleagues on nearly everything that they've said so far, but also just wanted to thank. I always love to see a full house, regardless of what the topic is, because it shows that people are engaged, they're taking part in the process. They're giving us feedback, which we so desperately need on this and every other issue. Otherwise, we're kind of left to our own devices. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for coming to speak tonight and for being so eloquent. I know Mr. Drake was concerned about it earlier, but you did well, man. And you hit on some points that I would, tend to agree with, like severity of sentencing not necessarily impacting frequency of crime. There's definitely some research out there to support that. So, no, I just appreciate the dialogue this evening and wanted to thank everyone for coming out. Thanks.
Councilmember Humphrey.
I have a question, and I think, Mr. City Attorney, it might be best geared towards you. And if you don't have an answer tonight, it's fine. If there was a construction project related to a church and they were accepting bids for a certain part of the project and they excluded some of the bidders because they weren't the same religion as the project being built, does that fall anywhere in this?
That particular facts session or scenario doesn't fall within it. But basically, for a religious organization, that the ordinance says for religious organization restitution, It's exempted if it restricts any of its facilities of housing or accommodations which are operated as a direct part of its religious activities to individuals of the religious organization or institution involved. And so in that regard, I would think not. Now, if in fact you were out there and had a church and they were building Burger Kings, and people were applying to build those and you denied them employment, then you probably would be in violation. But if you were simply building your church and trying to raise your church within your congregation or something along those lines, I think this would protect it as well as you may have some arguments under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act as well, which of course protects everyone under that act.
Thank you.
Any others? Councilmember Kathy.
I am the lone member that will vote against this. I will continue to vote against it. I don't think it is needed. I would ask how many people in this room and in our community realize that there is an LGBTQ community member's picture on that wall right over there. There is a very good possibility there will be a second on that wall right over there. To me, that speaks volumes about our community and how they also look at our various communities within this community, is that we are all equal. And as I have said before, you cannot legislate respect. And by those pictures being there, that leads me to respect. And if a business or a person is just strictly looking at surveys put out for specific agendas on whether to come here or not, maybe they aren't necessarily the person we need either. We need the people that look at the entire community, to look and see who we have elected as our leaders, who we have put our faith in. And that's where I am putting my faith, is in the members of our community that were willing to stand up and take the hard positions. I have had several people that have come up to me and on the side said, hang in there, because again, they are intimidated to speak out and say they don't believe in this either. Also, I would venture to say, talk to any Vietnam-era veteran and see how those people were discriminated against just because of the uniform they were wearing, and they were wearing that uniform to protect the freedoms that we are asking about today. I thank you. And again, as I said to council, I appreciate you respecting my opinion. Thank you all.
You're good? Okay. Okay, I'm going to make my statement really brief. I obviously support this. I think it's incredibly important for our community on a number of issues. The economic value, I think, of businesses and people coming here. I think it's important for our youth, because our youth, Gen Z is a completely different set of youth. And if you don't think I'm being serious on it, I've spent the last 20 years working with youth, and Gen Z is completely different, and they are going to change the world. And that will be happening, and it's already starting to happen. Because the first round of Gen Z have started to vote, and the first round of Gen Z are starting to make their mark on the United States. So you need to brace yourself. It's going to change. And that I'm excited for, because Gen Z is a pretty awesome group. We're moving towards that, and things scare us. Things that challenge our notion of what is right, what is wrong, scares us. It happens. I think the biggest notion is that we're not, it's exactly what Councilmember Pollack said, we're not hitting on uncharted territory. There are so many states and municipalities that are doing this. And so for us to come up here and say, you're going to be faced with lawsuits, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be faced with all these things, and it's just not happening. It's not happening. And I'm sure there are the outliers that does happen in certain areas, but I am telling you that we're not creating this whole new thing. Cheyenne did this ordinance. Laramie's doing this ordinance. So this is happening, and we're not telling you to believe moralistically about what you feel about another person. You don't have to like what they are, who they are. But if you look in their eyes and see a human, then you can respect them with dignity and respect. But you can hate them if you want to. That's up to you. We're not going to legislate your hate. We're not going to legislate those things that you feel that way. But what we're going to say is that we're going to have you be held accountable. This is not new territory, and we're heading in the right direction when it comes to that. And I'm really proud of the council for coming forward and trying to push through. So, thank you. Any amendments?
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
I move to amend section 9.08.020 subsection F, changing the title to exceptions and definitions and incorporating the written changes shown on the attachment of the city attorney's memo concerning subsection F.1 and F.2 and adding section F.3 titled definitions.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember McIntosh. Any discussion on the amendment?
Yes.
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
My hope is that this brings more clarity and defines better what we are trying to achieve through some more legal jargon, if you will.
Any other discussion? Okay, please cast your vote on the amendment, please. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, the motion passes.
Any other amendments tonight for this ordinance? Okay, I now ask you to please cast your vote on the ordinance as amended. Please record the vote.
Councilmember Kathy voting nay and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that came up and spoke. I appreciate it on either side. We appreciate the dialogue. Thank you so much. Council will now consider consent resolutions. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
9A1, approving and ratifying the Wyoming Department of Transportation Highway Safety Program Grant, FY 2023 subaward agreement between the Wyoming Department of Transportation Highway Safety Program and the Casper Police Department. 9A2, approving and ratifying the Wyoming Department of Transportation Highway Safety Program Grant, FY 2023 subaward agreement between the Wyoming Department of Transportation Highway Safety Program and Casper Police Department. 9A3, authorizing change order number 1 with Chalk Buttes Landscaping Incorporated for a contract increase and a time extension for the cemetery irrigation improvements. 9A4, authorizing an agreement with Crown Construction LLC for the Casper Regional Landfill Leachate Forest Main Extension. 9A5, authorizing amendment number 1 to the lease agreement with HA Baseball LLC, doing business as Casper Horseheads, for the use and operation of the Mike Lansing concession stand. 9A6, authorizing a procurement of goods agreement with Corin Maine LP for supplying water meters and water meter components for use in the City of Casper water distribution system. 9A7, authorizing a contract for professional services with BCV Systems LLC for the blower controls upgrades project at the Sam H. Hobbs wastewater treatment plant. 9A8, approving the vacation and replat of Valley West Business Center lots 1 through 6 addition and a portion of Commercial Tract 1, Paradise Valley subdivision, to create the Valley West Business Center number 2 addition. 9A9, approving the vacation and replat of Eastward Heights 8 addition, lots 1 through 5, to create Eastward Heights 8, lot 17, and the associated subdivision agreement. 9A10, authorizing submission of an application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant program. 9A11, authorizing a lease agreement with the Natrona County School District for use of Lot 12 at the Ford Wyoming Center to conduct driver's education classes for the Natrona County School District students.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Mr. City Manager, do you have any comments on any of these items? Thank you. Any abstentions or nay votes?
I will abstain from 9A2.
Okay, Councilmember McIntosh.
I'll abstain from 9A8 as well as 9A9.
Thank you, Councilmember Pollock.
9A5, please.
Councilmember Egerbretson.
I need to abstain from 9A9 and then Guess I have a question on 9A11.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, can we ask a question?
On 9A11,
This is one who's authorizing a lease agreement with an Natrona County School District for the use of the Ford Wyoming Center property or that property next to it for driver's education. And so this will be a lease for the immediate term. At some point, that may change. But for right now, this is authorizing the lease of that driver's education area from the city of Casper to Natrona County School District.
I was just curious if there was some language within this lease to get us out with all the changes happening at the Ford Wyoming Center that we might need to move them out of there.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Councilwoman, this is a year-to-year lease, and so this would only be valid essentially for the next year.
Okay. Did you get all those abstentions, Amanda? Okay. All right, please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Vice Mayor Nels, Councilmember Pollock, Councilmember McIntosh, and Councilmember Ingebretsen's abstentions noted, and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. At this time, we ask council members to bring forward relevant concerns and items of interest. Councilmember Pollock.
So much. I would just like to see if the council would like to entertain Steve Friel's proposition on considering flag lots in residential areas.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay.
Do you put it in a work session?
In a work session?
Work session, please.
In a work session? Everybody okay? Okay, sounds good. Thanks for bringing that up. Councilmember McIntosh.
Nothing tonight. Thanks.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Just a quick update. We had our regional water board meeting today. There were a few highlights. So one of some good information we received is that some of the investment portfolios changes we made that were in line with the changes the city made are yielding much greater interest. So I think the past couple of years, it was well under or right around $1,000 per year. Bruce or Steve, maybe you have more specifics than I do, but this year it was $25,000, so significant change there for the better. So that was good news. We discussed some awards through the ARPA grant. There were 19 projects awarded, and we were able to secure the well rehab project there. I did not write down how much that was for. I can't remember. $3 million. $3 million. So, so that was good news. I believe so. The full pot of available funds there was around $50 million, and there were $225 million worth of requests. So they had some tough decisions to make, and I'm glad that we were part of one of them. And then lastly, the audit was really, really clean. Nothing to report, and just wanted to send my thanks and to extend what we heard really positively from the board or from our auditors there were to Jill and her team, that they did a really wonderful job and made it so easy this year. So that's it.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Kathy.
Yes, I attended that. I attended that same water board meeting, and that was the one thing that I did want to stress is that Skogan-Comendo gave our financial department very high kudos for their level of accounting and keeping things straight, and it was much easier and much cleaner than it has been in the past. So again, pass that on to Jill and her finance group. That was greatly appreciated. The other thing was I went to the chamber meeting this evening, and for the parade this coming weekend, or Thanksgiving weekend on the 26th, they currently have 61 floats registered. So that is up significantly from past years. The other thing is the airport announced that they were October to October up 11% on boardings. However, they are still down about 39% from 2019. So we still have a ways to go, and that again is mainly business. They were the big purveyors of our airport from before, and it looks like probably the Zoom has and the GoToMeetings have taken away a bunch of that travel. But still, the primary focus on this airport is business travel. So wanted to pass those two things on.
Thank you. Councilmember Humphrey.
Tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things. Had a DDA board meeting last Wednesday. We discussed lots of things. Christmas tree lighting is coming up. It's on the 26th before the start of the parade. The Den at David Street will be the next day, so thank you to Peach's Family Restaurant for sponsoring the rental of the large outdoor tent that David Street intends to use for their activities over the winter season. Still solidifying that whole schedule, but lots of cool, exciting, different things. So looking forward again to that winter season over there at David Street. They just installed the community Christmas tree last Friday, so got a big, beautiful blue spruce over there in preparation for that. Went to the Wyoming Fallen Veteran Memorial on Saturday. A lot of good number of presenters, great turnout. Weather was nice even. I think they still have to pour the concrete over there, but it's coming along really well. Looks really nice over there. So if you haven't driven by, it's over there off of West 13th Street, right there in front of Fort Casper Museum. Last night, the Cyber Wyoming Alliance and the Science Zone organized the Cybersecurity Industry National Apprenticeship Week proclamation. That was last night. So there was a proclamation signed. The mayor was there. Really nice event. Important. So it's essentially meant, it's helping to educate and train the next generation workforce in IT. Certainly the demand is going to continue going up, and cybersecurity is going to increase in importance as the years go on. I wanted to note, if you didn't see the article, a Wyoming Rescue Mission staff member, Laura Moore, she recognized the victim of an Amber Alert out of Denver when they were brought in by the kidnapper seeking shelter at the mission. And so because of her actions, that little boy was successfully got back to his mother. So just a very cool story, and man, mad respect to Laura for having her head on a swivel and recognizing that child. So props to Laura over at the Rescue Mission. And that's all I got this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ingebretson.
I also attended the Wyoming Fallen Memorial for Veterans, and on Saturday, there's soldiers on there from the Spanish-American War, which I was unaware of, and so it's actually from the all the veterans from around the Wyoming, so from around the state. So it's actually really kind of cool to see. And then I just have the contractor board meeting this Thursday. That's it.
Vice Mayor.
Thanks. Planning and zoning last week. Couple things on the docket, but the things are kind of slow. It's that time of year, I suppose, with winter coming. Carter, I wish Jill was here tonight. It's after being at the Joint Powers Board meeting, it's literally unbelievable how she transformed their portfolio. And the exact numbers, if I remember correctly, were in 2021, they earned $605 worth of interest. In 2022, they earned $600 worth of interest. And this year, they've earned over $25,600 just by switching the investment. That's just so huge. And the things it's going to do for the city as well. But they really, and I'm sure, our finance people only hear it when things aren't good, but they need a pat on the back. She's done just a fantastic job. And kudos to her entire department. I think Nick, is that the young man that was at our meeting today? Yeah, Nicholas. Yeah, just a wonderful job they're doing. So good for them. I wanted to be clear, I abstained from 9A2, which was the award agreement for seatbelt usage through the Whiteout Safety Program. I have such an issue when our school buses run around our slick city streets and our kids are not mandated to wear a seatbelt. They're going to make the adults put one on, but it's okay to put 50 kids in a bus without a seatbelt and let them get in an accident and go flying all over the place without restraint. So I'm totally against them giving awards to people for wearing a seatbelt when they're not making our kids wear them. So I'll just never go for that. And I'm proud to say that I think I raised enough cane with Wardwell that they now, even though they're going to be dissolved soon, have got their tap fees in line with the city of Casper. They're within $200 now. So instead of a $15,000 tap fee, we're in the $5,000 range where it's supposed to be. So I'm proud of that as well. And I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I have a list of things. So first and foremost, what I want to touch base on is the, if you did not know, Angela Emery is retiring after 24 years. So she is duly, she deserves it very much. With that being said, that obviously opens up a position. And so the executive director position is open for the Trails Trust. And it is something that is really super critical to the partnership between us and the Trails Trust and that we work with. And so they're really trying to, hopefully looking for somebody within that. And so if you know someone that is, has a good background, not only in nonprofit work, but just philanthropy in that sense, pass that along, perhaps. They're really trying to look for someone, hopefully soon. So wanted to pass that along. This week is Apprenticeship Week, and so I did Cyber Wyoming. I went over there, but had an opportunity to sign a proclamation for that, for Apprenticeship Week, and to chat a little bit about the IT issues and around the state, the need for that, and the growth of cybersecurity around the state to be able to do that. So that was great to do it. I am also will be speaking at Pathways Innovation Center and doing a proclamation for the apprenticeship program as well. One of the things I say about apprenticeship, college is not for everyone, and that's okay. And so there are a lot of positions, high-paying positions, good positions across the gambit, and Pathways Innovation Center does that and plays an important role in doing those things. And so I look forward to doing that. On Friday, I spoke at Dean Morgan for Veterans Day. They asked me to come and speak. There were many veterans and students there. So I had an opportunity to speak about honoring our veterans and just remembering the work that they have done, including my father, who served in the Navy back in the 1950s, and to this day is one of my heroes along the way, not only for serving and sacrificing for our country. I will be on Sunday, and I think Renee's going to send this out to the council. I will be at the Hollywood, jeez. The Holiday Square lighting at Conwell Park. I will be doing the opening remarks. And contrary, I will not be singing anything for anybody for that opening, but I will be doing that as well. Thursday is Mayor Commissioner meeting, breakfast, so I will be at that, and so will and so will Bruce. So you forgot something? Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Just two things. Can we get on a work session the 1 cent, please? Before I forget, because that needs to be discussed amongst the council so we can get moved forward on that. And there was one other thing. What's the name of that little guy you were telling us about?
Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus. I told him I'd mention it. There it is. He's a short little fella.
Little man.
Ray has found favor with him. So, well,
the wee little man. Oh, Lordy. Okay, here we go. The next, we're going off the rails. The next meetings of the City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, November 22, 2022, in the council meeting room, and a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, December 6, 2022, in the council chambers. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this meeting was given. We have matters to discuss regarding land acquisition. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn to an executive session, and at the conclusion of the executive session to reconvene this regular meeting solely for the purposes of the adjournment of this regular meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Nell, seconded by Councilmember Egebretson. There being a majority of members present and a motion to adjourn into an executive session, having moved and seconded, and that motion requiring a 2/3 majority of the council present, please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, the motion passes.
A greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion, and we are hereby adjourned into an executive session. Thank you.